A black sedan pulls alongside your daughter's school gate, and every instinct in your body goes cold at once. You're Vincent Russo, and for 6 years you've kept two completely separate lives running side by side, without ever letting them touch. One life wears a tailored suit and counts money in the back room of a Brooklyn social club. The other packs a lunch every morning and reads bedtime stories about a rabbit who loses his way home. The sedan is not one of yours. Your driver, Sal, is already moving, hand inside his coat, and across the street your 7-year-old daughter, Rosa, is standing exactly where you told her wait, lunch pail in hand, utterly unaware that the two men stepping out of that car are not there by accident. You've spent 6 years building a wall between these two worlds. You are about to find out exactly how thin that wall actually was. Pull back, but to understand how a man ends up standing outside his own daughter's school with his hand halfway to a gun he swore he would never need again, you need to go back to the night your father died, and the life he left you no real choice but to inherit. Your father built his organization out of nothing during Prohibition's first desperate years, running whiskey up from the docks one crate at a time until crates became truckloads. He dies the way men in this business often do, quietly in his own bed, of a heart that simply gives out one ordinary Tuesday morning, leaving you the only son with the only name capable of holding what he built together. You are 26 years old at his funeral, and every man in that church expects you to either take control within a month or be replaced within it. There is no third option offered, not once, by anyone. Sal Greco, your father's oldest lieutenant, stands beside you at the grave and tells you plainly that grief is a luxury this life rarely permits for long. He has known you since you were younger than Rosa is now. He becomes, within that same week, the only person in the organization you fully trust. You inherit, along with the organization itself, a ledger written in your father's careful hand, listing debts owed and favors extended across a decade of careful, patient work. You spend your first 6 months simply learning to read it properly, understanding for the first time exactly how many ordinary lives your family's business quietly touches without most of those people ever knowing it. Sal teaches you, over that first difficult year, the particular skill of separating the men who genuinely respect your father's memory from the ones simply testing how far a young, untested boss can actually be pushed. You learn to tell the difference by the third or fourth meeting, though the lesson costs you a fair amount of money before it fully sinks in. You keep your father's watch, stopped permanently at the exact hour he died, on your own desk rather than your wrist, a daily reminder you never fully explain to anyone, including yourself. If stories exactly like this one are genuinely the kind of thing you come here for, hitting subscribe truly helps this channel keep making them. POV Chronicles puts you inside real corners of history, researched properly and brought to life with real care and genuine attention. Right back to Vincent. You marry Elena 2 years later, a school teacher who knew nothing of your family's business when you first met her at a church dance, and considerably more of it by your wedding day, though she marries you anyway on the condition, stated plainly and repeated often, that any children you have will grow up entirely outside of it. You agree to a 5-year plan, whispered to her in the dark more than once. 5 years to consolidate, legitimize the parts of the business that can be legitimized, and walk away clean before any child of yours is old enough to understand what you actually do for a living. Rose arrives 18 months into that plan, and you discover, almost immediately, that 5 years feels considerably longer once there's a small, specific person waiting for you to actually keep the promise. You hold her for the first time in a hospital corridor still smelling faintly of gun oil from a meeting you left early, and decide quietly that this is the last time those two smells will ever occupy the same day. You attend every school recital you can physically manage, arriving in a plain gray suit rather than anything that might draw attention, sitting in the back row where Rose has been taught, without ever being told exactly why, to look for you. You clap loudest of anyone in the room and leave before the reception every single time, because lingering too long in one place has never once been a habit this life allows you to keep. Sal watches this arrangement with the patient skepticism of a man who has seen a great many 5-year plans fail to survive contact with an actual business. He never says so directly. He simply starts, without being asked, keeping a slightly closer eye on anyone showing unusual interest in your movements outside the club. You teach Rosa to ride a bicycle on a Sunday afternoon when the rest of the organization believes you are meeting a supplier upstate, running alongside or down the block with one hand hovering just behind the seat, entirely unable to explain, if anyone from the club happened to drive past, exactly what business meeting this was supposed to be. Elena catches you once, mid-lesson, crouched on the pavement, resetting Rose's chain after a fall, and simply watches from the porch for a long moment before going back inside, saying nothing, though you catch the smallest trace of smile before the screen door swings shut behind her. You keep a photograph of Rose's first day of school tucked inside your desk drawer at the club, angled so that only you can see it from your usual chair, a small, deliberate reminder of exactly what the 5-year plan is actually supposed to be protecting. Elena grows increasingly direct as the years pass, no longer whispering the question in the dark, but asking it plainly across the breakfast table some mornings. How many more years, Vincent? You give her an answer each time. You are not always entirely certain, saying out loud that you fully believe it yourself. Sal takes Rose fishing once, an outing you did not entirely sanction in advance, and returns her that evening with sunburn, a small fish she insists on naming, and a grin on his usually unreadable face that you have never seen directed at anyone else in the entire organization. You once overhear Rosa telling a school friend, with complete childhood confidence, that her father works in imports, a phrase she has clearly picked up from Elena and repeats with a seriousness that makes you laugh out loud for the first time in what feels like weeks. The trouble starts, as it usually does, with territory. A rival outfit run by a man named Callahan has been pushing into your docks for months. Small provocations at first, a hijacked truck here, a threatened distributor there. Each one calculated to stay just below the threshold that would force an actual response. You meet Callahan once, in neutral territory, a diner that neither family technically controls, and offer him a split he does not accept. He tells you almost pleasantly, over coffee neither of you actually drinks, that a man with a family is a man with something to lose, and that losing things tends to make negotiations considerably more straightforward. You do not fully understand, in that exact moment, how literally he intends a threat. Sal warns you the following week that unfamiliar men have been seen twice near Rosa's school, watching rather than approaching, patient in a way that worries him considerably more than an outright attack would. You increase security around the house, doubling the men on the porch without ever explaining the actual reason to Elena directly. You vary Rosa's route to school without ever explaining why to her directly, inventing small games about taking the scenic way instead, turning genuine fear into something that feels, from her perspective, almost like an adventure. She asks you once, with the easy curiosity of a 7-year-old, why the game keeps changing every single week, and you tell her, not entirely dishonestly, that surprises keep mornings interesting. Elena asks you, quietly, one night in the kitchen, whether the life you promised to leave has finally decided it is not finished with you yet. You do not have a good answer for her. You are not certain, standing in that kitchen, that you have one for yourself either. Sal reports, 2 days later, that the men near the school have not been seen again for nearly a week, and you allow yourself exactly one full day of cautious relief before the black sedan actually arrives. You find yourself, more than once that week, standing in Rosa's doorway after she has fallen asleep, watching her breathe in a particular unhurried way only children manage, try to calculate exactly how much of the danger circling your business has actually reached this room, and coming up each time with an answer you do not entirely trust. You call an old associate in the police department that first week, a man your father once did considerable favors for, and ask him, quietly, to have a patrol car pass Rosa's school slightly more often than usual. He agrees without asking a single question, which tells you almost as much about the seriousness of the situation as Sal's warnings already have. You catch yourself standing at the club window one evening, running through every enemy you have made in 6 years, ranking each by exactly how far you genuinely believe they would go, and finding the exercise considerably less reassuring than you had hoped it might be. Elena packs a small emergency bag that week, never mentioning it directly, though you find it tucked beside the front door and understand exactly what it represents without needing either of you to say the word out loud. The black sedan outside Rosa's school is Callahan's answer to a negotiation you thought had simply gone quiet. Sal is out of the car before it fully stops, and you are moving the same instant, cutting across the street at a dead run, watching 2 men you do not recognize walk unhurried and deliberate toward exactly the spot where your daughter is standing. Rosa sees you coming before she sees them, and calls out your name with the easy, delighted confusion of a child who has no idea her father is currently sprinting toward the single worst moment of both your lives. One of the men reaches for her shoulder. You reach her first by perhaps 2 full seconds, close enough that you will remember, for the rest of your life, the exact sound your own breathing made in that instant. You sweep Rose up in one arm without breaking stride, her small hands immediately gripping your collar. Confusion finally giving way to something close to fear as she reads your expression rather than your words. Sal puts himself bodily between you both and the second man, coat falling open just enough to make his intentions entirely clear without a single word needing to be spoken by anyone. Other parents nearby have begun to notice, ushering their own children toward the school entrance with a particular urgency of people who do not fully understand what is happening but recognize danger regardless. The first man studies you for a long moment, then simply steps back, hands visibly empty, and delivers a message rather than an attack. Callahan wants a meeting, he says. Tonight, alone, or next time nobody bothers stepping back at all. You have perhaps 6 hours to decide whether tonight ends with a negotiation or something considerably worse than one. A teacher steps out onto the school steps, drawn by the sudden commotion, and you catch her eye for exactly 1 instant, silently willing her to simply go back inside rather than become another person standing too close to whatever happens next. You will spend years afterward trying to explain to yourself exactly how you crossed that street so fast, and never quite manage a satisfying answer beyond the simple, uncomplicated fact that your body apparently decided the matter before your mind was given any say in it at all. You go to the meeting alone, exactly as instructed, though Sal insists on waiting 2 blocks away regardless, engine running, against your direct order to the contrary. Callahan meets you in the back room of a shuttered restaurant, flanked by 2 men who make no particular effort to hide the weapons under their coats. You do not raise your voice. You tell him plainly that the doxer is, all of them, effective immediately, and that you are done fighting over territory that was never actually worth what today nearly cost you. Callahan studies you for a long moment, clearly expecting a counteroffer, a negotiation, anything other than an outright surrender that costs you a genuine fortune in a single sentence. He asks you, almost curious, why a man builds an empire only to hand half of it away the moment someone threatens his family. You tell him the truth, because you no longer see any reason not to. The empire was never actually the point. It was only ever meant to be temporary scaffolding around a thing that actually mattered, and today made painfully clear exactly how badly you had confused the two. Callahan sits back slightly, turning that answer over for a long, silent moment, and for the first time since you walked in, something in his posture eases fractionally. He tells you, almost gently for a man in his line of work, that he has a daughter of his own back home, and that he genuinely hoped it would not have to come to using her against you. Callahan accepts the terms, visibly satisfied, though something in his expression suggests he has just learned something about you he did not entirely expect to learn today. You shake on it, the way men in this particular business always seal an agreement, and walk back out into the street considerably poorer, and, for the first time in 6 years, considerably lighter as well. Sal is waiting exactly where he said he would be, and does not ask a single question until you are both safely back inside the car. You notice, walking back to the car afterward, that your hands are shaking slightly for the first time since this entire ordeal actually began, adrenaline finally catching up with you now that there is nothing left requiring it. Callahan's men lower their coats slightly as the conversation shifts, a small, deliberate signal you recognize immediately from years of exactly this kind of negotiation, though it does little to actually slow your own racing heartbeat in the moment. Mechanism 2. Silent declarative. The engine idles quietly for a long moment before either of you finally speaks again. You tell Elena everything that night, the full truth for the first time in your marriage, sitting at the same kitchen table where she once asked whether life had finished with you. She listens without interrupting, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee gone cold. And when you finally finish, she asks only one question. What happens now? You begin unwinding the organization within a month. Legitimate businesses first, the rest handed to men who want exactly the life you're trying to leave. Sal stays long enough to see the transition hold, then retires to a small house upstate he insists has nothing to do with anything you said that week. Rosa grows up never fully knowing how close that ordinary Tuesday came to changing everything, remembering it, if at all, as the day her father picked her up early from school for no particular reason. If a story like this is what you come to POV Chronicles for, hit subscribe. There's a whole channel of moments exactly like it waiting for you. Hit like if that run across the street, 2 seconds between you and the worst outcome imaginable, hit you the way it hit us researching it. And drop a comment below. First, would you have handed over the docs or fought for them? Second, let us know where in the world you're watching this from.